My mom spent a lot of my money on my sister's wedding, but I stopped it by freezing the account. I'm facing a tough situation. My mom and sister have been using me for a long time, and now it's gone too far. I want to stop them, but I worry that cutting them off completely would make life hard for them. I'm tired of always giving in to their demands. I'm 38 years old, married with 2 kids, and I've been living in Ohio for 6 years since I got married. I originally come from Houston. My childhood was tough because my parents got divorced and my dad left. When I was 10 years old, my parents split up. I was 5 when it happened. They say it was because my dad thought my sister wasn't really his child. This made them get divorced. Dad let mom keep our house and he moved out. He paid for my schooling but not for my sister's. He didn't give money to support her, and I don't know why mom didn't ask for it. Maybe that's why people believe dad's claim about my sister. Dad wasn't around much during my childhood. Sometimes my dad would come to my school to pay for my fees and bring me gifts. But when I started high school, I reached out to him, and since then, he's been a big part of my life. He even came to my wedding, even though my mom didn't like it. Over time, I grew closer to my dad than to my mom. He visited me in Ohio twice after I moved here, but then he got very sick, and we lost him last year. Mom didn't like how close I was to my dad, and she started acting distant. To make her even more upset, my dad named me as his heir. He got married again after divorcing my mom, but he didn't have any kids with his new wife. My dad always said I was his only daughter. Mom and my sister didn't like me because dad favored me, and I got to inherit his $400,000 trust fund. But it's not just about the money. Dad supported me through school, so I got a better education than my sister. This meant I went to better schools and colleges and had a better life overall, thanks to the money Dad gave us after the divorce. I was 10 when they split, and by then the money for my education had already started coming in. I was 12, so Mom couldn't control it much. The money for my schooling went straight to the school, and later to college from the support Dad gave us. Mom did use some of the money for my sister and for things around the house. I wasn't a dumb kid, so my mom tried to keep me happy so I wouldn't complain. I won't say my mom and sister were mean to me when I was growing up, but they didn't really like me, and they were pretty close to each other while I felt left out. Plus, I was smart, not just in school but clever too. I wasn't someone they could push around easily. I think that's why my mom never mistreated me. Nowadays, my problem is the $400,000 my dad left for me. Ever since my mom and sister found out about it, they keep asking me for money. Actually, this isn't the first time they've asked for money. I've been helping them financially since I started working. As I made more money, their needs grew. I don't owe them anything, but I help them because they're family and they don't make much money. My mom works as a cashier and my sister works in a store. Together, they don't make half as much as I do, so I feel like I should help them. We might not be very close emotionally, but they've never been mean to me. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say and that I'm not confusing you with my feelings. A few months ago, my mom called me and said she wanted to fix up our house. Over the years, the walls, ceilings, and floors had gotten really damaged. Since Dad left, we hadn't been able to keep up with repairs. The house hadn't been painted, and the wiring was messed up. The ceilings and walls were falling apart in places. We never had enough money to take care of the house. Mom said it was getting hard to live there, especially during storms. She went to the bank to ask for a loan, but the interest rates were too high. I knew she wanted me to give her the money for the renovations, but neither of us said it directly. It was an awkward talk, so after that, I started ignoring her calls. She doesn't call me much, usually just once a month, but last month she called me 3 or 4 times. When I finally answered her call, Mom said it wasn't safe to stay in our house anymore because it was falling apart in bad weather. This time, she was direct and asked me for money. She promised to pay it back bit by bit. I asked her how much she needed, and she said $100,000. I was shocked. I didn't have that much to lend. She hinted at the inheritance money. I was angry but didn't want to talk about it. I said I could only lend $50,000. She agreed. Later, I realized I was too quick to offer $50,000. I could have just ignored her, but now that I'd said it, I had to lend her the money. I didn't feel good about lending such a big amount. My husband suggested that I lend the money bit by bit and check on the progress of the house before giving more. I told my mom I'd send $50,000 in parts. I had an old account in Houston that I hadn't used, so I activated it and sent $10,000 there. I gave mom access to that account. She asked why I didn't send the money directly to her account, and I made up an excuse. It was actually my husband's idea. I'm not very hopeful that she'll pay it back, but let's see how it goes. Update. I can't figure out exactly how my mom and sister tried to trick me for easy money. It's been 2 months since I started lending money to my mom for the house renovations. I've given $20,000 so far, and I'm not giving any more after this. I always knew they were only nice to me for my money, but I never thought they would lie to me this much just to get money from me. If they had been honest with me, it wouldn't have hurt so much. Recently, I found out that my sister is getting married, not from my family, but from one of my school friends. My friend's husband is a wedding planner, and my sister has been working with his agency to plan her big wedding. They're calling it a grand wedding. I don't think my sister knew that I'm friends with them. A wedding worth $50,000 is definitely grand. It hurts to find out about your sister's wedding from someone else. I wasn't even told about it, let alone invited. I thought it would be a small and intimate wedding with just a few people, but my friend told me the guest list was around 100. It was heartbreaking not to even be among those 100 guests. Feeling sad about it is one thing, but I'm more concerned about the money. Where did my sister get the money to organize such an extravagant wedding? It was held at one of the best venues in town, with unlimited food and drinks, and top-notch decorations and flowers. I checked the bank account where I was sending money to my mom for her supposed renovation project, but it was empty. I called mom to ask if the renovations had started. She said yes, she hired a renovation company, but the work hadn't begun yet. I couldn't stand her lies. Until then, I wasn't sure if they were really using my money for her wedding. But the thought of them spending a lot on her wedding while still taking money from me for the house renovation disgusted me. I briefly thought about flying to Houston to check things out myself, but I realized it wouldn't be worth it. Instead, I called my aunt, who lived nearby my mom's house. I asked if she knew about my sister's wedding, and she said yes, but she wasn't invited either. Mom doesn't get along with my dad's side of the family, so it made sense. She also mentioned that my sister's wedding had become the talk of the neighborhood. I mean, just a few years ago, their house was falling apart, and now they have a brand new house and a lavish wedding. Hearing this made me feel dizzy and confused. Mom told me the house still needed repairs, but my aunt said it looked new with fresh paint. Then I remembered about 6 months ago, Mom asked me for $20,000 for her knee surgery. I called Mom to ask where she had the surgery done. I lied, saying a friend needed details for her dad's surgery. Mom struggled to remember and couldn't give me any information about the hospital or clinic. She seemed caught off guard and hung up, saying there was a network issue. When I called again, her phone was off, and she didn't answer for days. I sent a text, but she didn't read it. I realized she was lying. The money I gave her for the surgery was probably used for the house renovations, and the money she's taking now is likely for my sister's wedding. I also found out my sister got engaged on our front lawn with decorations and wine. I felt like I'd been living in the dark because I had no idea they were living so lavishly and pretending to be poor to get money from me. So I decided to cut them off. I stopped sending money to that account, and when Mom called or texted, I ignored her. My sister, who never called before, tried calling, but I ignored her too. I'm done with their lies and manipulation. Just because I make more money than them, and my dad left me an inheritance while giving them nothing, doesn't give them the right to take advantage of me with their lies. I've decided to spoil my mom's princess's big day. Update 2. I was right about my mom. When I ignored all their attempts to reach me, my mom called my husband. Let me tell you, my husband can be a bit of a party pooper. I warned him not to talk to them, but when my mom called him, he did. She started crying, saying I was avoiding them. They needed money to finish the renovations, and I had broken my promise. My husband spilled the beans. Yes, he did that. I wanted to smack him on the head. He told her that I knew the truth, that she'd been using me for money, and that the money was really for my sister's wedding, which is why I cut them off. I was really angry because I wanted them to suffer for their deception, but my husband ruined everything. He also told my mom that we knew she lied about the knee surgery and used that money for the house repairs. After that call, my mom bombarded my phone with apologies. She said it was all a misunderstanding. She borrowed the money from someone for the house repairs and was paying them back with my money. It was another lie. After her constant calls and messages, I said I'd talk to her only if she promised to tell me the truth. She agreed. When we spoke, she finally told me everything. She said my sister wanted a big wedding, but they didn't have the money for it, so they decided to ask me for it. It was my sister's idea to use the excuse of house renovations to get the money from me. They knew I hadn't been to Houston in years and wasn't in touch with anyone there, so I wouldn't know the house was already renovated. I asked her why she didn't just tell me the truth and ask for money directly for the wedding. She said my sister didn't want that. She said she didn't want to ask me for a favor directly. Can you believe that? I told her I knew she used the knee surgery money I gave her to fix the house. She went silent. I told her I knew everything, so there was no point in hiding it. She said the house was falling apart, and my sister's in-laws were coming to visit, so they had to fix it quickly. They couldn't think of a better reason to get money from me in a hurry, so she panicked and called me, saying the doctor wanted her to have urgent knee surgery, and I sent the money right away. Even though I stayed strong on the call, I was crying inside. How could my own mother deceive me like this? I know they have money problems, but that doesn't give them the right to manipulate me and take advantage of my emotions. After I heard the truth, I hung up and cried for hours. I can't remember the last time I cried so much. Maybe when my dad passed away. I missed him terribly that day. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from Mom asking me to send the rest of the money so they could keep planning the wedding. It disgusted me so much that I wanted to scream at her. If she wasn't my mom, I think she was really selfish. She didn't show any regret. All she cared about was money. They didn't even invite me to the wedding, not even out of politeness. When the truth came out, I felt so frustrated that I blocked both of them. I also warned my husband not to talk to them, and if he disobeys me again, he'll sleep outside in the cold. I'm serious about this. I'm keeping in touch with my aunt, and she told me the wedding is next month. I didn't tell her about the money, but I know my mom and sister are struggling more and more each day to make the wedding they wanted happen. Good for them. Update 3. Mom and sister kept calling and leaving voicemails until the wedding day, asking for money, but I didn't give in. On the wedding day, Mom's last voicemail said she was ashamed of me and disowned me. It hurt so much. I cried a lot in front of my husband. People might say I'm mean for ruining my sister's wedding. Mom called me arrogant and selfish too. But she never thought about her lies. She tricked me for so long. I helped them because I felt like I had to. I thought of them as family, but to them, I was just a way to get money. On the wedding day, my friend, whose husband was the wedding planner, called. She said the wedding might be canceled because they weren't paying for it anymore. I asked my friend how much they paid for the wedding so far, and she said $20,000. I said that's enough for a nice wedding, but she said my sister ordered fancy decorations and food, and the location alone cost $20,000. She asked if I was going, and I said no, I had other plans. My friend knew I wasn't close to my mom and sister. To be honest, I felt upset because I felt like I ruined my sister's wedding. For a moment, I thought about giving the rest of the money to my friend to finish the wedding as planned, but then I remembered my mom's voicemail disowning me. What's the point of helping them if they disown me in the end? Maybe my actions weren't great, but they were a reaction to their hurtful actions. I turned off my phone and spent the day with my kids to keep my mind off things. The next day, my friend called again, upset with my sister because the wedding made her husband look bad in the business. On the wedding day, Mom and sister begged her husband to arrange something basic for the wedding and promised to pay $10,000 more. He managed to get decent food and decorations because the $20,000 advance covered most of the venue cost. But guests and the groom's family criticized the arrangements, and my sister blamed the wedding planner. She said he messed everything up. My friend's husband wanted to tell the truth, but Mom begged him not to ruin my sister's life. He stayed quiet and took the blame. Plus, they hadn't paid the promised $10,000 yet. I felt so embarrassed. I didn't know what to say. My friend said she wasn't blaming me, just sharing her frustration. I felt bad for my family's embarrassment, but also embarrassed they blamed the planner. My husband said they got what they deserved, and I shouldn't worry about them. They brought it on themselves by being dishonest. I'm relieved to stay away from their lies and tricks. Mom disowning me turned out to be a blessing. I don't have to deal with their lies anymore. On to the next chapter. My husband dropped a bombshell yesterday. He confessed that he's in love with my sister, but he said it when he was drunk, so I don't know if it's real. We all had dinner together with my sister and her husband, and we drank a lot. After they left, my husband and I had sex. We were tired, so we kept drinking wine, listening to music, and having a good time. My husband seemed happy, like he always does when he's drunk. We talked about my sister and her husband, and out of nowhere he said, "I'm so in love with sister's name." I was shocked and asked, "What?" He said, "I'm crazy about sister's name. I wish I could kiss her, she's amazing." He had this dreamy look on his face and kept smiling. I asked him if he was really drunk, and he said, "Probably." It hit me hard, even though I was also drunk. I just sat there silently, and he seemed lost in his thoughts with a smile on his face. I went to bed feeling confused and upset. This morning, I woke up sober and all those memories came rushing back. What my husband said is haunting me, and I feel shattered inside. He hasn't mentioned anything and seems fine, just dealing with a hangover. I don't know what to do now. He's always had a good relationship with my sister, so should I ignore what he said when he was drunk? Maybe it was just the alcohol talking? Should I wait for him to bring it up? I'm not even sure if he remembers. And what about the sex we had? It felt different. Even though I enjoyed it and thought it was amazing, he seemed different, more passionate and loving. He kept saying, "I love you, you're amazing." My sister recently lost weight and looked stunning in a form-fitting dress yesterday, and we all complimented her. She was really happy about it. I'm not sure why I'm mentioning this, but maybe it's important. I'll definitely talk to him about it when he's not hungover and can think clearly. I'm torn about whether to believe the saying, "drunk mind speaks sober thoughts," because alcohol can cloud judgment. I'm not sure if I can fully believe that alcohol alone could make someone confess love for their sister-in-law. Even if he denies it, do you think you can get past this? Because I believe he'll deny it. If I were you, I wouldn't feel comfortable with my husband and sister being together again, and that's not good for a marriage. I think he was probably just expressing his attraction to your sister in the moment. Honestly, when people's inhibitions are lowered, they might mix up feelings of lust and love. So regardless, you need to talk seriously with your husband. No one else can answer for him, and even after talking, it might be really hard for you to move forward. From experience, I know that even if it's just lust, you might carry this experience with you like a shadow. If you both want to try to make things work, I suggest going to couples counseling and getting therapy individually to help you both move forward in a healthy way. I wish you all the best and hope for a brighter future for you. I'm really sorry you're going through this. Something similar happened to me once. My ex said, "I love you," but he used my twin sister's name instead. When I corrected him, he acted like he made a mistake. But he didn't. He was actually in love with my sister. He was only dating me to get to her. You need to have a serious talk with your husband about this. It makes no sense for him to date you if he's interested in your sister. No sister would ever accept her sister's ex. At least, that's what I thought until she dated him after I. Our upbringing was tough, and our relationship wasn't great because our parents often compared us and put us against each other. I agree, most of the time, that's the worst way to handle it. It would be much better to be friends with their siblings instead of getting involved with them romantically. But I guess he wasn't thinking clearly, lol. It's painful to read about. You definitely need to talk to him about it today. He's acting like nothing happened. Do you think he doesn't remember saying it? I agree that drunk words often reveal sober thoughts. Have you ever noticed any behavior towards her that made you stop and think? Ask him directly while you're facing each other. His reaction will tell you a lot. He's always liked my sister. He gets along with my whole family and is friends with my brothers. But my sister is the one he likes the most, and we're very close to her and her husband. We usually do things together as a group. But my sister has always been my best friend, so it seemed normal. If he had only said, "I love her," it couldn't have been just a drunken slip-up. But he made sure to express his feelings clearly. His words weren't just drunken nonsense. They were sincere and showed deep feelings, especially since his inhibitions were down. People say silly things when they're drunk, but they don't usually profess their love for someone like that unless it's important to them. I would bring it up directly and see how he reacts. That should give you a clear answer. Update. Hi, it's been 3 days since I last updated because I'm feeling conflicted. I talked to my husband on Sunday about what happened. He said he didn't remember much about that night, especially after my sister and her husband left and we kept drinking. I told him what he said, but he didn't seem shocked or surprised, just that he didn't remember saying anything. I asked him if he felt that way before we started drinking. He said he's always loved my sister because she's kind and warm. He also mentioned that he thought she looked really beautiful that night, and maybe his drunk self thought she was attractive. He said it's normal for people to be curious about the opposite sex. He's always thought my family is good-looking, and my sister's weight loss gave her confidence, which made her look happy, and he was happy for her. I asked him if he had to choose between us, and he was shocked. He said I'm his wife and the mother of his children, and he loves me. When I asked him to imagine if we had just met and neither of us was married, he got frustrated and said this was getting ridiculous. He doesn't like playing hypothetical games because they can lead to unnecessary fights. After dinner, he reassured me that he loves me very much and that he's happy. He said I shouldn't overthink what he said when he was too drunk to even know who or where he was. I'm still unsure about everything. I appreciate your advice, and I've been thinking about seeing a therapist on my own. It would bother me a lot to think about how much his desire to stay connected with my sister, even if it's just a little, influenced his decision to stay with me. I could never get over the thought of him being intimate with her while using me as a substitute for his feelings for her. These thoughts would keep replaying in my mind forever, making it hard for me to feel connected during intimate moments with him. I'd always be comparing myself, feeling inadequate, and questioning if his feelings for me are genuine. My ADHD would make it even harder for me to believe that his affection for me wasn't just an act. My sister and I are very close, and we live close to each other. I've wondered if he settled for being close to her by being with me. I obsess over every interaction and mention of her, wondering if he's as happy with me as he seems to be with her. I'm not sure if what he's saying is true or if I'm just imagining things now. There's no way to come back from this. It will always be on my mind. I need to trust my instincts and stand up for myself. He admitted his feelings for my sister to me. He's had these feelings for years, but he says he loves me and our life together. We're going to start counseling, and from now on, when I spend time with my sister, he won't be there. He's confessed his feelings for her, but he says he's never acted on them in the past and won't in the future.
The termination papers landed on my desk with deliberate precision, their crisp edges aligned perfectly with the mahogany surface I'd selected myself when we first moved into this office 5 years ago. Effectively immediately, your POSITIONHAS and eliminated. Victoria smirked, her newly manicured nails, paid for with the company credit card, no doubt, tapping against my desk. Jason and I agree you're not a good fit for Nextech's future. I kept my expression neutral as I studied the woman my husband had chosen over me. Victoria Stone, 32, MBA from Wharton, barely, and apparently qualified to be our new chief technology officer, despite having never written a line of code in her life. Her qualifications seemed limited to her ability to seduce married men and her father's connections in venture capital. Jason and you, I repeated slowly, glancing at the patent documents tucked safely in my drawer. The ones for the neural interface technology that comprise 90% of NextX's value. How thoughtful of you both to consider the company's future. She preened at what she mistook for acceptance. We knew you'd understand, Elise. After all, you're too smart to make this unpleasant. The severance package is generous. 6 months' salary and continued health benefits. More than fair for what was your title again? Technical consultant. Co-founder and chief innovation officer. I corrected mildly, though we both knew she was perfectly aware of my position. The position I'd held since Jason and I started NextEdge in our garage 8 years ago. Back when he still believed in our dreams more than his own ego. Right. Victoria's smile was sharp as a blade. Well, that's all changing. Jason's restructuring to prepare for our Series C funding. McKenna Ventures is very interested, but they want to see strong leadership. Unified leadership. Unified. Meaning Jason and his mistress, while the wife who developed every significant piece of technology got pushed out. Speaking of Jason, I said, reaching for my phone. Shouldn't he be here for this conversation? Firing your co-founder seems like something the CEO should handle personally. Victoria's eyes glittered with malice. He thought it would be easier coming from me, less emotional. You know how he hates confrontation. Yes, I knew exactly how my husband of 10 years avoided anything uncomfortable. Like telling me about his affair. Like explaining why company funds were being diverted to a marketing consultant who never produced any campaigns. Like having the courage to face me himself instead of sending his mistress to do his dirty work. I see. I pulled the termination papers closer, pretending to read them while my mind raced through possibilities. And my equity. The lawyers will handle all that, Victoria said dismissively. Something about vesting schedules and buyback clauses. Very complicated. But don't worry, Jason wants to be fair. Fair, like when he'd insisted I put the patents under my personal name rather than the company's, claiming it would be better for tax purposes. I thought he was protecting our interests. Now I realized he'd simply been too lazy to handle the paperwork himself. I'll need time to review these documents, I said, standing slowly, and to transition my projects. Victoria's smile widened. Actually, security is waiting outside to escort you out. Company policy for terminated executives. I'm sure you understand. We've already backed up all your files and reassigned your projects to the new team I'm building. The new team. I wondered if she had any idea what she actually need to run the technology division of a neural interface company. Of course, I agreed, opening my desk drawer and pulling out a few personal items, including the slim folder containing copies of my patent certificates. I wouldn't want to violate company policy. As I packed my belongings into the cardboard box she thoughtfully provided, I noticed Jason hovering outside the glass walls of my office, too cowardly to even make eye contact. 8 years of partnership, 10 years of marriage reduced to him hiding behind a potted plant while his mistress dismantled my life. Oh, one more thing, Victoria said as I headed for the door. The company car needs to be returned by end of business today. And the corporate apartment, well, since that's Jason's primary residence now, you'll need to make other arrangements. I paused, genuinely curious. You're moving into the apartment? Next week, she confirmed with savage satisfaction. Jason thought it would be easier if you heard it from me. He really does care about your feelings, you know. 2 security guards waited outside, Marcus and Tommy, who I'd hired personally 3 years ago. They at least had the decency to look uncomfortable as they escorted me through the offices I'd designed, past the employees I'd recruited and mentored. I'm sorry, Dr. Morrison, Marcus whispered as we waited for the elevator. This isn't right. I patted his arm gently. Don't jeopardize your job for me. You have a family to feed. But I noticed several employees watching from their desks, expressions ranging from shock to anger, particularly my research team, brilliant minds I'd handpicked and nurtured. They knew what my leaving meant for their projects. In the parking garage, I loaded my single box into my personal car, a modest Tesla I'd bought before Jason insisted on German luxury vehicles as befitting our status. As I drove away from the building that had been my second home for 5 years, my phone buzzed with messages. Dr. Amit Patel, my lead neural engineer. This is insane. What do they expect us to do without you? Sarah Kim, our youngest PhD. Please tell me you have a plan. We all know who really runs the tech side. And most surprisingly, Robert McKenna from McKenna Ventures heard about Nextech's restructuring. Would love to discuss your next move. Coffee tomorrow. I ignored them all for now, driving instead to the small apartment I'd maintained near my elderly mother. Jason had mocked me for keeping it, calling it a waste of money. But I'd insisted, claiming I needed somewhere quiet to think. Really, I kept it because some part of me had always known this day might come. That evening, I sat at my simple kitchen table with a glass of wine and my laptop, finally allowing myself to process the full scope of what had happened. An email from Nextech's legal team confirmed Victoria's claims. They were invoking a buyback clause for my 30% equity stake, offering a price that would have seemed generous if you didn't know the company's true value. What they didn't know, what Jason had clearly forgotten in his eagerness to move forward with Victoria, was that I'd never signed the intellectual property assignment agreements for my latest patents, the ones for the breakthrough neural mapping algorithm that made our entire platform possible, the ones that our competitors would kill to license. My phone rang. Jason, finally finding his courage after letting me stew for 6 hours. Elise, he began, his voice artificially warm. I hope you understand this is just business. Victoria has connections we need, and... Jason, I interrupted calmly. Do you remember the Neuralink 3.0 presentation for McKenna Ventures next week? Of course. Victoria's handling it now. She's very confident. I'm sure she is. Tell me, has she reviewed the technical specifications? The live demonstration we promised? A pause. She said she's got it covered. Your team is supporting her. My team, who knew perfectly well that the demonstration required my personal authorization codes to access the neural mapping system. Codes I'd changed monthly for security purposes, codes I'd updated just yesterday. That's wonderful, I said sweetly. I'm sure it will go perfectly. By the way, you might want to have legal review the patent assignments for the core technology, just to make sure everything is properly transferred. What are you talking about? His voice sharpened. All company IP belongs to Nextech. All IP developed under employment agreements, yes, but you insisted I file the neural mapping patents independently, remember? For tax purposes, I have the emails where you specifically directed me to keep them in my name. The silence stretched so long, I wondered if he'd hung up. You wouldn't, he finally said. You wouldn't destroy the company out of spite. Destroy it? I'm going to save it. I took a sip of wine, savoring the moment. From itself. Have a good evening, Jason. Give Victoria my regards. I hung up before he could respond, then turned off my phone. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and threats and negotiations. But tonight, I had work to do. I opened my laptop and began drafting an email to my research team, using personal addresses I'd memorized long ago. The subject line was simple, regarding next week's demo and beyond. By morning, I had 17 responses. Every single member of my team expressing frustration with the new management and interest in whatever comes next. Amit was particularly direct. We all know who holds the real keys to this technology. Just say where and when. I scheduled meetings with 3 venture capital firms for the following week, deliberately timing them for the same day as Nextech's crucial presentation to McKenna Ventures. Robert McKenna himself had already confirmed he'd make time for me. On the day of the presentation, I sat in McKenna Ventures' waiting room, scrolling through increasingly frantic texts from Jason. The demo isn't working. Your team says they need authorization codes. This is sabotage. You're destroying everything we built. Please, Elise, at least think about the employees. Finally, my favorite, Victoria says she can fix it. She just needs the patent documentation. I was still smiling when Robert McKenna emerged from the conference room where Nextech's presentation had apparently imploded spectacularly. Dr. Morrison, he greeted me warmly. I hear you might have some interesting technology to discuss. I do, I confirmed, standing to shake his hand. Neural mapping algorithms that make current interfaces look like stone tools. And I have some ideas about the team to develop them. His eyes sharpened with interest. Your non-compete? Only applies to employment with competitors. Nothing about starting my own venture. Jason was very specific about keeping those terms narrow. He didn't want to limit his own options if things didn't work out. Poetic justice, McKenna murmured. Shall we? The meeting went better than I could have hoped. McKenna had done his homework, understanding not just the technology but the dynamics at play. By the end, we had a handshake agreement for seed funding that dwarfed what Nextech was seeking. One question he set as we concluded: "Why didn't you fight to stay? With your patents, you could have forced their hand." I considered the question carefully, because they showed me who they really were. Jason chose the easy path, flashy connections over solid innovation. Victoria thinks she can run a tech company on charm and an MBA. They deserve each other, and they deserve what's coming. Which is reality. You can't run a neural interface company without understanding neural interfaces. You can't lead a research team you don't respect. And you can't build a future on technology you don't own. McKenna smiled. "When do you plan to tell them about the patents?" "My lawyer is sending the cease and desist letter this afternoon. They have 30 days to stop using my technology or negotiate a licensing agreement. And if they refuse? Then I'll see them in court while I build something better with the team that actually created the technology in the first place." 2 weeks later, the tech press exploded with the news. Nextech co-founder launches rival startup, claims core patent rights. The articles were carefully neutral, but the industry knew what it meant. Without my neural mapping algorithms, Nextech was just another company with big dreams and no way to achieve them. Jason called me repeatedly. I finally answered on the 5th attempt. "$30 million," he said without preamble. "For the patents and your agreement not to compete." "No. $50 million. "Jason, you don't have $50 million. You barely have $5 million in runway. And that's if McKenna doesn't pull out entirely, which I hear he's considering. This is my company." The composure finally cracked. "We built this together." "We did." I agreed. "And then you chose to destroy it for a younger woman with connected daddy. How's that working out, by the way?" Victoria is, overwhelmed, out of her depth, hemorrhaging talent because she treats engineers like replaceable cogs. I'd heard all the stories from my former team, most of whom had already submitted resignations. Who could have predicted that? "Please." His voice broke. "I made a mistake. We can fix this. Come back. I'll make you CTO, give you full control of technology. Victoria can focus on operations." "Victoria," I interrupted, "is the woman you chose over me. The woman you sent to fire me. The woman who tried to steal my life's work. There's no coming back from that. Then license the patents. Fair terms, we can coexist." I thought about it. Not because I needed the money, McKenna's funding was more than sufficient, but because despite everything, I didn't want to destroy the employees who'd stayed loyal to the company. "I'll consider it," I said finally. "Have your lawyer send a proposal. But Jason, the terms will reflect market value. No discounts for old time's sake." The licensing agreement took 3 months to negotiate. By then, I launched MindBridge Technologies with my core team and several new additions. Victoria had lasted exactly 90 days as CTO before being quietly transitioned to a strategic advisor role. Corporate speak for "please stop breaking things." The industry watched with fascination as Nextech struggled to maintain relevance while paying hefty licensing fees to the company their co-founder had been forced to create. Meanwhile, MindBridge soared, unencumbered by the dysfunction and ego that had infected my former company. A year later, I stood before a packed auditorium at the Neural Interface Conference, presenting MindBridge's breakthrough in consciousness mapping. In the audience, I spotted Jason and Victoria sitting separately. Their body language told the whole story. The affair that had cost so much had burned out as quickly as it had ignited. After my presentation, Jason approached me during the networking reception. He looked older, worn down by the weight of his choices. "Congratulations," he said quietly. "The consciousness mapping, it's revolutionary." "Thank you." I kept my tone professional. "How's Nextech?" "Surviving." "Barely. The board is pressuring me to sell." "I'm sorry to hear that." And I was in a way, not for Jason, but for what we once built together. "I'm sorry too," he said suddenly. "For everything. I threw away the best thing in my life for, I don't even know what. My ego, a midlife crisis, the thrill of something new." "It doesn't matter now," I said gently. "We've both moved on." "You have," he corrected. "I'm stuck in the wreckage of my own making." I didn't disagree. There was nothing left to say. As I turned to leave, he called after me. "The patent thing, keeping them in your name. Did you plan that? Did you know? I looked back at him, this man I had once loved, who'd shared my dreams and then betrayed them. I planned for possibility, I said honestly. You taught me that actually. Always have a backup plan, Elise, remember. He laughed bitterly. I never thought you'd need one for me. Neither did I admitted. But here we are. I left him standing there, surrounded by the success he'd thrown away. Victoria found me later by the bar, her designer dress and perfect makeup unable to hide the desperation in her eyes. I know you hate me, she began without preamble. But I need a job. Any job. My reputation is, she gestured helplessly. Destroyed? I supplied. Because you tried to run a technology company without understanding technology. She flinched but nodded. I was arrogant. Stupid. I thought connections and an MBA were enough. I thought, she paused, then continued more quietly, I thought taking your place would make me important. Instead, I just proved how irreplaceable you were. It would have been easy to gloat, to twist the knife a little deeper. But looking at her, really looking, I saw someone who learned a painful lesson about competence versus confidence. I can't hire you, I said firmly. That would be inappropriate for everyone involved. But I pulled out a business card. This is Dr. Sarah Kim. She's launching an educational startup focused on business training for technical industries. She might have a place for someone who's learned the hard way why it matters. Victoria took the card with trembling fingers. Why would you help me? I'm not, I clarified. I'm helping Sarah. If she decides you have something to offer, that's her choice. But Victoria, don't waste the opportunity. You might not get another. As the conference wound down, I found myself on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the city lights. My phone buzzed with congratulations from colleagues, investors, and employees. MindBridge was valued at 10 times what NextEdge had ever been worth. We were changing the world, one neural connection at a time. Penny, for your thoughts? I turned to find Amit, my lead engineer and now CTO, holding 2 glasses of champagne. Just thinking about paths not taken, I said, accepting the glass. Any regrets? I considered the question. If Jason hadn't betrayed me, if Victoria hadn't forced me out, would I have eventually left anyway? Would I have found the courage to build something entirely my own? No, I said finally, no regrets. Every path led here, to this moment, to what we're building. Even the painful ones. To painful paths and beautiful destinations. Amit toasted. We clinked glasses as the city sparkled below us. Somewhere down there, Jason was probably still trying to salvage NextEdge, and Victoria was hopefully calling Sarah about a second chance. But up here, surrounded by the team that had believed in me when I'd lost everything, I felt only gratitude. They thought they were eliminating me as competition. Instead, they freed me to become something far more powerful, myself, uncompromised and unlimited. The patent had saved my technology, but losing everything else had saved me. And in the end, that was worth more than any company valuation or licensing deal. As I looked toward the future, I knew one thing for certain. The best revenge wasn't destroying those who'd wronged you. It was building something so magnificent that their betrayal became nothing more than a footnote in your success story. And my story, it was just getting started.
We've already found you the perfect condo. 2 bedrooms. Much more manageable than this monstrosity. My mother-in-law announced as she led a realtor through my dining room while I was still carving the turkey, the woman's measuring tape already stretched across my grandmother's mahogany table. The 22 family members I'd invited for Thanksgiving dinner sat frozen, forks halfway to their mouths. As Patricia continued, Brenda has buyers ready to make an offer today. Cash, as is, quick close before the baby arrives. The question wasn't how she'd found out I was pregnant. I'd planned to announce it over dessert. But how she discovered the financial bombs that were about to detonate in her son's carefully constructed life. Mom, what are you doing? Kevin finally spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. He set down his wine glass with shaking hands, the red liquid sloshing dangerously close to my grandmother's lace tablecloth. Patricia beamed at the table like she'd just presented us with a winning lottery ticket. Taking initiative. You 2 are clearly overwhelmed with this place, and with a baby coming, you need to be practical. Brenda specializes in distressed sales. Distressed sales? I kept my voice pleasant, though my hand tightened on the carving knife. How interesting. Brenda, what makes you think our home is distressed? Brenda, a polished woman in her 50s with perfectly highlighted hair, had the grace to look uncomfortable. Well, Mrs. Morrison indicated there were some financial pressures. Patricia, I corrected. Her name is Patricia. I'm Mrs. Morrison, and this is my house. Our house, Kevin interjected quickly. No, honey. I set down the carving knife with deliberate care. My house. Remember? You were very clear about keeping assets separate when we married. Modern arrangements for modern couples, you said. My sister Lauren coughed into her napkin, trying to hide a smirk. She'd warned me about Kevin's insistence on financial independence when we'd gotten engaged 5 years ago. I'd thought it was progressive. Turned out it was prophetic. Regardless of whose name is on the deed, Patricia waved dismissively. You can't possibly manage this place with a baby. 5 bedrooms, 3 floors, that ridiculous pool. The pool I had installed last year, I interrupted. With the infinity edge you said was too show-offy for people like us. Exactly my point. Wasteful spending when you should be preparing for the future. Patricia turned to Brenda. Show them the listing for the condo. It's in a very appropriate neighborhood. Brenda fumbled with her tablet, clearly wishing she were anywhere else. The rest of the family watched like it was dinner theater, my Aunt Martha actually pausing mid-chew to observe better. Before Brenda shows us anything, I said, walking around the table to face them directly, perhaps we should discuss why you think we need to downsize. Kevin, would you like to share, or should I? Kevin's brother Jason shifted nervously. Maybe this isn't the time. Oh, I think it's the perfect time. I smiled at him. After all, Patricia brought a realtor to Thanksgiving dinner. We're clearly past social niceties. You're being dramatic, Patricia sniffed. I'm trying to help. This house is too much for Kevin to maintain on his salary. What salary? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The room went silent except for the sound of my cousin's baby gurgling in her high chair. I continued, meeting Kevin's panicked eyes. The salary from the job he lost 3 months ago? Or the new position he's been pretending to go to every morning while actually sitting in Starbucks applying for unemployment? Margot. Kevin stood so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood. This isn't. Isn't what? Isn't the time? When is the time, Kevin? When the credit cards are maxed? Oh wait, they already are. When the car gets repossessed? That's scheduled for next week. I turned to Brenda. Did Patricia mention that when she asked you to come today? Brenda was backing toward the door. I think there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, Patricia insisted, grabbing Brenda's arm. My son is having temporary setbacks. Once they sell this albatross, they'll be fine. Temporary setbacks, I repeated. Is that what we're calling embezzlement now? The word dropped like a bomb. My father nearly choked on his turkey. Lauren's eyes went wide. Even Patricia's perfectly composed face cracked. You said you wouldn't tell anyone, Kevin whispered. You said you'd tell your parents before the lawyers did. I pulled out my phone. But since you didn't, let me catch everyone up. Kevin borrowed $47,000 from his company's client accounts. He thought he could replace it before anyone noticed. It was an investment opportunity, Kevin protested. It was supposed to triple. Cryptocurrency? I supplied helpfully. He invested client funds in cryptocurrency, which crashed. Along with our marriage, coincidentally. This is family business. Patricia shrieked. Not dinner conversation. You brought a realtor to Thanksgiving, Patricia. You made it dinner conversation. I turned to Brenda, who looked like she wanted to dissolve into the floor. Did she also mention she co-signed Kevin's loans? The ones he took out to cover the theft before the audit found it anyway. Brenda yanked her arm free from Patricia's grip. I need to go. I can't be involved in fraud, I suggested. Smart choice. Though for what it's worth, The house isn't part of any criminal proceedings. It's in my name. Bought with my inheritance before I ever met Kevin. Free and clear. You're lying. Patricia spat. Kevin told me you were broke when he met you. A teacher with student loans. A teacher whose grandfather invented a small medical device that's in every emergency room in America. I smiled at Kevin's stunned face. You never asked where the house money came from, honey. Just assumed your salary was carrying us. But you let me pay for things, he said weakly. Your half of utilities and groceries? Yes. While I paid the property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and that small matter of the mortgage-free deed. I turned back to our audience. Kevin was very proud of providing for us. I didn't have the heart to tell him his contribution covered about 10% of our actual expenses. This is ridiculous, Patricia rallied. Even if what you're saying is true, which I doubt, you can't raise a baby alone in this house. Why not? I've been essentially alone in it for 5 years. I walked back to my place at the head of the table. Kevin, tell them about your business trips. The ones to Atlantic City, Vegas, that underground poker game in Chinatown. Jason groaned. Kev, tell me you didn't. It's not gambling when you're good at it. Kevin exploded. I had a system. The system of losing everything repeatedly. I pulled out a folder I'd hidden under my chair. Brenda, since you're here, maybe you can help me understand these receipts. Casino charges on credit cards I didn't know existed. Cash advances. Payday loans. Stop it, Patricia commanded. Just stop. You're humiliating him. I'm humiliating him? I laughed, actually laughed. He brought me a onesie from Daddy's little gambling chip from Caesar's Palace. I'm 8 months pregnant, and he brought me baby clothes from a casino where he lost our emergency fund. You're pregnant? My Aunt Martha finally spoke. How far along? 32 weeks. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling the baby move. We were going to announce it today. Surprise. This changes everything, Patricia said triumphantly. You need Kevin. A baby needs its father. Does it need a father who's facing federal charges? I asked quietly. He'll likely spend the next 3 to 5 years in prison. Whose assets will be seized to pay restitution? Prison. Brenda squeaked, edging closer to the door. Federal charges for wire fraud. Turns out moving money between accounts to hide theft is frowned upon. I looked at Patricia. Your lawyer didn't explain that when you co-signed? Patricia's face had gone from red to white. Richard said it was handled. That the company wouldn't press charges if we paid it back. Richard, your divorce attorney who lost his license 2 years ago. That Richard? I shook my head. Patricia, they're pressing charges. The FBI raided Kevin's office last week. He's out on bail. You knew? Kevin accused. You knew and didn't warn me? Warn you? I hired you a real lawyer. The one you refused to meet with because Richard had it handled. I turned to the rest of the family. I'm sorry. This isn't how I wanted today to go. But apparently, we're doing full disclosure over Turkey. The baby, Patricia said desperately. You can't raise a baby alone. You need help. Family support. You mean your help? I laughed again. The woman who told me I was a gold digger at my own wedding. Who insisted on a paternity test when I announced the pregnancy. Who brought a realtor to Thanksgiving to force me out of my own home. I was protecting my son. From what? From the woman who's been paying his debts, hiring his lawyers, and keeping a roof over his head while he gambled away money that wasn't his. I stood, my back aching from the pregnancy and stress. No, Patricia. I don't need that kind of help. You'll be begging for help when you're alone with a screaming baby, she sneered. When you realize what you've thrown away. Thrown away? I pulled out another paper. This is a separation agreement. I filed it the day after the FBI raid. Kevin's been served. He just hasn't told you. Kevin slumped in his chair. Margaret, please. You stole $47,000. You gambled away our savings. You lied to me every single day for months. My voice cracked slightly. And you were going to let your mother sell my house to pay for your crimes. I didn't know she was bringing a realtor. But you knew she was planning something. You always know when Patricia's planning something. I looked around the table at our families, his looking shocked, mine looking grimly unsurprised. That's how it works. Patricia schemes, Kevin enables, and everyone else deals with the fallout. How dare you? Patricia started. How dare I what? Tell the truth? Refuse to be bullied? Keep my own house? I walked to where Brenda stood by the door. I'm sorry you were dragged into this. Patricia has a tendency to involve innocent people in her schemes. Brenda nodded rapidly. I should go. This is clearly a family matter. Wait, I said. Can I ask you something? Professional to professional. She paused cautiously. All right. What's the market value on a house like this? Ballpark? Her eyes swept the room, the original hardwood, the crown molding, the wall of windows overlooking the pool. In this neighborhood, with these finishes, easily 2 million, maybe 2.5. Hear that, Patricia? I turned back to my mother-in-law. $2 million you tried to steal from me. To pay for your son's crimes. It's not stealing when it's family. Patricia shrieked. It is when the family member says no. I walked back to the table, picking up the carving knife. Now, would anyone like more turkey? I'd hate for the food to go to waste. You can't just continue dinner like nothing happened, Patricia protested. Watch me. I carved another slice of turkey with steady hands. Aunt Martha, your plate looks empty. Lauren, pass the stuffing. Slowly, awkwardly, people began to eat again. Brenda slipped out quietly. Patricia stood frozen, apparently unable to process that her plan had failed. Sit down, Mom, Jason finally said. You're making it worse. Worse? How could it be worse? She's destroying our family. No, Kevin said quietly, finally finding his voice. I destroyed our family. Margaret's just refusing to go down with me. It was the first honest thing he'd said in months. But the baby, Patricia tried one more time. We'll be fine, I interrupted. I've managed to prepare for a child while dealing with FBI agents, forensic accountants, and a criminal defense attorney. I think I can handle motherhood. You'll need money. I have money. My money. From my job, my investments, my house that's not being sold. I looked at Kevin. Though if you want to discuss child support from prison, I'm sure we can work something out. He flinched. Jason put a hand on his shoulder. This isn't over, Patricia warned, but her voice had lost its power. Yes, it is. I sat back down, exhausted but oddly relieved. It's been over since the moment Kevin decided stealing was easier than talking to me about his debts. Since you decided my house was your emergency fund. Since everyone at this table decided I was too stupid to notice. We didn't think you were stupid, Kevin protested. No. Then what did you think? That I wouldn't check our accounts. Wouldn't notice the missing money, the strange charges, the way you jumped every time the phone rang. I shook my head. You thought I loved you too much to see clearly, and for a while, you were right. The baby kicked hard, reminding me why I'd finally stopped pretending everything was fine. Margot, my mother spoke for the first time. Are you all right? Really all right? I met her concerned eyes. I will be. The house is mine. The baby's healthy, and I've got a good lawyer. Everything else is just details. Details like your husband going to prison. Patricia spat. Ex-husband, once the divorce is final. And yes, those kinds of details. I rubbed my belly as the baby kicked again. But I've got bigger things to worry about. Like whether this little one will inherit Kimon's ability to lie with a straight face. That's not genetic, Lauren said, trying to lighten the mood. Let's hope not. I managed a small smile. Though if it is, at least I'll be prepared this time. The rest of dinner passed in strained conversation. Patricia didn't eat another bite, just sat there radiating fury and disbelief. Kevin pushed food around his plate like a child. The rest of the family tried to pretend this was a normal Thanksgiving, discussing football and Black Friday plans. As people began to leave, they hugged me extra tight, whispered words of support, pressed envelopes into my hand that I knew contained checks I'd never cashed but appreciated anyway. Patricia was the last to go, Kevin trailing behind her like always. "This isn't over," she repeated at the door. "Yes, it is," I said firmly. "Kevin's going to prison. The house stays mine. The baby will be raised without your interference. It's over, Patricia." "We'll see about that." She swept out, not waiting for Kevin. He lingered on the doorstep. "Margot, don't." I held up my hand. "Whatever you're about to say, just don't. Save it for your lawyer." "I did love you," he said quietly, "in my way. Your way involved stealing, lying, and trying to sell my house." I started to close the door. "Your way wasn't enough." After they left, I stood in my dining room, surveying the damage. Plates half full of cold food. Patricia's chair knocked askew. The tablet Brenda had forgotten in her haste to escape. My sister appeared in the doorway. "Want help cleaning up?" "No." I picked up a plate, then set it back down. "Actually, yes. But first." I walked to the window that overlooked the driveway, watching Patricia's Mercedes disappear into the night. The house felt lighter already, like it could finally breathe. "First?" Lauren prompted. "First, I want to sit by my ridiculous pool and feel grateful that I saw this coming." I headed for the back door. "The dishes can wait." We sat by the infinity edge Patricia had hated, watching the lights of the city below. The baby settled, finally calm after the dinnertime drama. "You knew about the embezzlement," Lauren said. It wasn't a question. "For 2 months. My financial advisor noticed the strange activity." I leaned back in the lounger. "I've been preparing ever since." "The FBI?" "Came to me first. I cooperated fully." I smiled grimly. "Turns out victim spouses get certain protections in fraud cases. And the house was never in danger. But I wanted to see how far they'd go." I touched my belly. Needed to know before the baby came. Lauren whistled low, and Patricia delivered. "She always does." I closed my eyes. Kevin I might have forgiven, eventually. The gambling, even the theft. Addiction makes people do terrible things. But bringing his mother here to steal my house while pregnant with his child. Unforgivable. Completely. I opened my eyes. "Did you see Brenda's face when I mentioned the FBI?" Lauren laughed. I thought she was going to faint. Patricia probably told her it was a simple family sale. Patricia probably believed it herself. In her world, what's mine is Kevin's. And what's Kevin's is hers. I stood carefully. "Come on. Let's clean up. I want my house back to normal." We worked in comfortable silence, erasing the evidence of the day's drama. By the time we finished, you'd never know a realtor had measured my dining room or that my mother-in-law had tried to steal my home. The turkey carcass went in the fridge, soup for later, when the memories weren't so fresh. The good china back in the cabinet my grandmother had left me, along with the house Patricia couldn't touch. "You going to be okay?" Lauren asked as she gathered her things. "Better than okay." I walked her to the door. For the first time in months, I know exactly where I stand. Alone, but secure. "Not alone," she corrected. "You've got family. The kind that doesn't bring realtors to dinner." After she left, I did one final circuit at my house, checking locks, turning off lights, making sure everything was as it should be. In the nursery I decorated myself. Without Patricia's input or Kevin's indifference, I sat in the rocking chair my mother had used with me. "Just you and me, little one," I whispered. "But I promise you this. Our house will always be our sanctuary. No one will ever make us feel unwelcome in our own home." The baby kicked in response, and I took it as agreement. Downstairs, my phone buzzed. Kevin, probably, or Patricia with more threats. I ignored it. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and logistics and the harsh reality of single motherhood. But tonight, in my house that no realtor would measure, I was exactly where I belonged.
Just a paperwork mix-up, she assured me as my deportation loomed. But the US's investigation revealed she'd been filing false reports about my employment for months. The email trail showed her planning to hire her niece for my position. When ICE raided my apartment, at 5:47 a.m., they broke down my door. 6 ICE agents in tactical gear, weapons drawn, screaming commands in English that my terror-frozen brain couldn't process. I was on the floor in my pajamas, hands zip-tied behind my back, when one of them finally said the words that made everything clear. "You're under arrest for visa fraud and illegal employment." My name is Priya Sharma, and 6 months ago, I was living my American dream, a senior software engineer at a Fortune 500 company, engaged to the love of my life, building the future I'd worked so hard to achieve. Today, I'm fighting deportation because my boss, Miranda Whitfield, decided her niece deserved my job more than I did. It started subtly, the way workplace sabotage always does. Miranda had been my manager for 2 years, all smiles and mentorship, until her niece Jessica graduated from coding bootcamp. Suddenly, my performance reviews contained concerns that had never been voiced before. My code was lacking innovation. My communication needed cultural adjustment. My work ethic was different from team expectations. "Don't worry about it," Miranda assured me during one of our one-on-ones. "Just minor areas for growth. Your visa renewal should be fine." I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She'd hired me straight from my master's program, sponsored my H-1B visa, written glowing recommendations. She knew my entire life depended on that job, not just my career, but my legal right to exist in the country I'd called home for 7 years. The first real sign of trouble came when HR called me in February. Linda from HR looked uncomfortable, shuffling papers on her desk. "Priya, we've received some concerning reports about your employment status," she began. "There seem to be discrepancies in your timesheets." Discrepancies? I pulled up my meticulously kept records on my phone. I log everything. Every hour, every project. That's the issue. Your manager's reports to USCIS show different hours. Significantly different. Like part-time hours when you've been working full-time. My blood ran cold. H-1B visas require full-time employment. If USCIS thought I was working part-time, it would invalidate my status. "This has to be a mistake," I said. "Miranda knows I work 50 to 60 hours a week. She assigns the projects herself." Linda frowned. "I'll look into it. For now, just keep detailed records of everything." I started documenting obsessively. Screenshots of emails, photos of myself at my desk with timestamps, co-commit logs showing my work hours. I even started recording meetings with Miranda, legal in our one-party consent state, though it felt like betrayal. The second sign came in March when my visa renewal was denied. Insufficient evidence of specialized employment, the denial letter read. Employer failed to demonstrate need for foreign worker in this position. I stormed into Miranda's office, denial letter trembling in my hand. She was training Jessica on our code base, my code base, the system I'd architected from scratch. "Oh, Priya." She minimized her screen quickly. "What's wrong?" "My visa was denied. They say you didn't provide proper documentation." Her face was a masterpiece of concern. "That can't be right. I filed everything myself to make sure it was perfect. Must be a processing error. These government agencies, you know how they are." "Miranda, I could be deported." "Don't be dramatic. We'll file an appeal." "Jessica, why don't we grab us some coffee? Priya and I need to sort this out." Jessica -22, blonde, fresh out of boot camp, gave me a sympathetic look that felt rehearsed. "Of course, Aunt Miranda." "Hi, Priya. I've heard so much about your work. It's incredible what you've built here." After she left, Miranda pulled up emails on her computer. "See, I sent everything to USCIS. Letter of support, your job description, salary information. It's all here." It looked legitimate, but something nagged at me, a detail I wouldn't understand until later. The job description she'd sent described a junior developer role, not the senior architect position I actually held. The salary was listed as $45,000, not the $120,000 I earned. Every detail crafted to make it seem like my job could be filled by any entry-level American worker. "We'll fix this," Miranda promised. "Just keep working normally while we sort it out." but normally became increasingly impossible. My access to critical systems was revoked pending visa status clarification. My team lead responsibilities were temporarily reassigned to Jessica for training purposes. My desk was moved to a corner cube because Jessica needed to be closer to Miranda for mentorship. I hired an immigration lawyer with my savings. Raj Patel was expensive but came highly recommended. When he reviewed my case, his expression grew increasingly grim. Priya, these documents your employer submitted, they're not just wrong. They're deliberately falsified. Your actual job description, the one in your original visa application, has been completely rewritten. And these timesheet reports, they show you working 20 hours a week for the past 6 months. But I work twice that. I believe you, but USCIS goes by what the employer reports. And your employer is telling them you're a part-time junior developer making barely above minimum wage. Why would Miranda do this? Raj pulled up LinkedIn on his laptop. Jessica Whitfield. Started at your company 2 months ago as senior software architect. That's your title, isn't it? The pieces clicked. Every late-night project Miranda had me training Jessica on. Every system architecture document she had me share for backup purposes. Every proprietary algorithm I developed that Jessica was now maintaining. She's replacing you with her niece, I whispered. While making it look like you're the one committing visa fraud, Raj added. If USCIS thinks you've been lying about your employment, you're not just looking at deportation. You're looking at a permanent ban from re-entering the U.S. The next weeks were a nightmare of legal filings, evidence gathering, and steadily escalating hostility at work. Miranda became openly cold, criticizing my work in public, assigning me menial tasks, scheduling important meetings when she knew I had lawyer appointments. Maybe you should consider opportunities back home, she suggested during one particularly cruel performance review. This visa situation is clearly affecting your work quality. My work quality is fine, I shot back. It's good enough for Jessica to take credit for it. Her mask slipped. Jessica is a talented developer who doesn't require expensive visa sponsorship. She's also family, which means she's loyal. Unlike some people who forget who gave them their chance. I recorded that conversation. Thank God I recorded it. The USCI's investigation began after Raj filed our complaint. What they found was damning. Miranda hadn't just falsified my recent reports. She'd been laying groundwork for months. Emails to HR about my performance issues that were never sent to me. Backdated documentation suggesting I'd been counseled for problems that never existed. Time cards edited retroactively to show me working fewer hours. But Miranda had made one crucial mistake. She used her company email to coordinate with Jessica. Mom says you're ready to take over the neural network project, one email read. Priya won't be an issue much longer. Can't wait to officially start. Jessica had replied. Aunt Miranda says I can have the corner office once visa issues resolve. The FBI's cybercrime division got involved when they discovered Miranda had accessed my personal USCIS account using credentials she'd obtained when helping with my initial visa application. She'd been monitoring my status, even submitting false documents in my name to make it look like I was complicit in the fraud. The raid on my apartment happened before the investigation concluded. Someone, we later learned it was Miranda, had reported me as an illegal immigrant engaged in unauthorized employment. ICE doesn't wait for investigations. They act on tips, sort out truth later. Those 20 minutes on my apartment floor, surrounded by armed agents, were the longest of my life. My fiancé James arrived as they were loading me into the van. She's here legally, he shouted, showing them our meticulously organized visa documentation. This is a mistake. Tell it to the judge, one agent replied, slamming the van door. I spent 72 hours in detention before Raj could get me released. 72 hours in a concrete cell, wearing a uniform that marked me as criminal, listening to the sobs of others caught in a system's web. My cellmate was a grandmother who'd been here 30 years, grabbed in a workplace raid because her green card renewal was delayed. They don't see us as people, she told me, just problems to be solved by removal. When I finally got out, the real bombshell waited. The USCIS investigation had uncovered everything. Miranda had done this before, to 2 other H-1B holders in the past 5 years. Each time, a family member had mysteriously become qualified for the job just as the visa holder's status was sabotaged. Each time, she portrayed herself as the helpful manager trying to navigate unfortunate immigration issues. Her previous victims had been deported before they could fight back. I was the first to lawyer up, the first to document, the first to fight. The FBI arrested Miranda at the office. I wasn't there. She banned me from the premises for security reasons, but coworkers sent videos. Miranda in handcuffs, screaming about ungrateful foreigners stealing American jobs. Jessica crying, insisting she hadn't known, that she just wanted to work with her aunt. The investigation revealed the full scope. Miranda had taken kickbacks from Jessica's father, her brother, for getting his daughter a six-figure job she wasn't qualified for. They planned to do the same for another nephew the following year, targeting my Indian colleague who was also on an H-1B. It's not illegal to hire family, Miranda's lawyer argued at her trial. And it's not illegal to report genuine concerns about an employee's performance. But the prosecutor had receipts. Every falsified document, every backdated email, every fraudulent USCIS filing. Most damning was the recording I'd made of Miranda admitting Jessica was family and that I should leave the country. This wasn't nepotism, the prosecutor said. This was a deliberate campaign to destroy illegal immigrants' life for personal gain. Ms. Whitfield weaponized the immigration system, knowing that any irregularity could result in deportation. She used her position of power to commit fraud, identity theft, and immigration violations. Miranda was convicted on 12 counts, including visa fraud, identity theft, and making false statements to federal agents. She got 8 years in federal prison. Her brother was convicted as an accomplice. Jessica, who cooperated with authorities and genuinely seemed horrified when she learned the full truth, got probation and community service. But my victory in court didn't immediately solve my problems. My visa status was in limbo. The company, terrified of liability, had terminated me without prejudice during the investigation. No job meant no valid visa status, even though the fraud wasn't my fault. The system doesn't care about fairness, Raj explained. You're out of status. Period. I had to leave. After 7 years, an engagement, a career, a life built carefully within every legal boundary, I had to go back to India and reapply from scratch. The departure was voluntary, better than deportation, which would have carried a 10-year ban. But it felt like exile. James offered to marry me immediately, to file for a spouse visa, but I was too proud, too hurt, too afraid that even marriage would be seen as fraud after everything Miranda had put in my file. I need to do this right, I told him at the airport. I need to come back on my own terms, not running from her lies. 6 months. That's how long it took to clean up Miranda's mess, to get new visa approval, to find a company willing to sponsor me despite the complications in my history. 6 months of 3 a.m. video calls with James, of restarting my career in Bangalore, of fighting to prove I deserved what I'd already earned. The day I returned to the U.S., legally, with a visa that Miranda couldn't touch from prison, felt like victory. The tech company that hired me had followed my case, horrified that such talent could be lost to bureaucratic sabotage. They offered me a senior architect position with a clear path to green card sponsorship. We value engineers, not their birthplace, my new manager, David, said during orientation. What happened to you was unconscionable. It won't happen here. I married James 6 months later. Not for papers, my visa was secure, but because surviving Miranda's sabotage had taught us both that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. Why wait to build the life we wanted? At the wedding, my former colleague Emmett gave a toast. He'd been Miranda's next target, the investigation revealed. My fight had saved him from the same fate. To Priya, he raised his glass, who refused to be erased. Miranda serves her time in federal prison. I get updates occasionally from former coworkers. She maintains her innocence, claims she was protecting American jobs from unqualified foreigners. She's banned from holding any position of authority over visa workers upon release, a small justice for the career she destroyed. Jessica reached out once, a long email full of apologies and explanations. She genuinely believed she was qualified, genuinely thought I was struggling at work based on her aunt's lies. She's in therapy, she said, processing how family loyalty was weaponized to hurt innocent people. I didn't reply, but I hope she's learned. The experience changed me. I document everything now, every meeting, every conversation, every assignment. I know my rights, know immigration law better than some lawyers. I mentor other visa holders, teaching them to protect themselves from the Miranda Whitfields of the world. Trust but verify, I tell them. And always, always keep receipts. Because the truth is, Miranda wasn't unique. She was just careless enough to get caught. For every Miranda in prison, there are dozens operating carefully, legally, using the complexity of immigration law to terrorize workers who can't fight back. Who know that visa holders will accept abuse rather than risk deportation. Who weaponize bureaucracy for personal gain. But we're not powerless. We have rights, voices, recourse. Miranda thought my accent and visa status made me disposable. She learned that immigration doesn't determine worth, that temporary status doesn't mean temporary humanity. I'm still here, still coding, still building, still contributing to the country I chose and that chose me back. Despite Miranda's best efforts, my green card application is processing smoothly. My team values my work. My marriage is strong. Miranda stole 2 years of my life, but she gave me something too. The knowledge that I could survive anything the system threw at me. That my worth wasn't determined by a visa stamp. That belonging isn't granted by managers or bureaucrats, but earned through resilience, integrity, and refusing to be erased. From her prison cell, Miranda can see the walls she built to keep me out. From my corner office, earned honestly this time, I can see the bridges I built to return. I know which hue I prefer.
Dead weight doesn't get lighter with age, Miles. It just drags everyone down with it. Those were my father's exact words as he threw my suitcase onto the sidewalk, while my mother stood behind him, nodding like he just delivered some profound wisdom instead of destroying his youngest son. But the real question wasn't why they kicked me out at 18. It was why they thought I'd save them 7 years later when karma came to collect. My name is Miles Chen, and seeing my family living in their rusted sedan outside my Manhattan penthouse building would have been poetic justice if it didn't hurt so damn much. The night they kicked me out remains crystallized in my memory. June 15th, 2016. I just graduated high school. Barely. While my older brother Nathan was heading to Yale Law and my sister Serena to Johns Hopkins Medical, I was the family disappointment. Dyslexic, struggled with traditional academics, spent my time drawing and building things instead of studying for SATs. We've given you every opportunity, Mom said that night, her voice cold with disappointment. Tutors, private schools, therapy. Nothing works. You're 18 now. It's time you learn to sink or swim on your own. But I got into art school. Art school? Dad laughed bitterly. With what money? You think we're wasting another cent on your fantasies? Nathan's law school, Serena's medical school. Those are investments. You're just an expense. I'm your son. No, Dad stood, towering over me. Nathan is our son. Serena is our daughter. You're dead weight. And dead weight doesn't get lighter with age. Miles, it just drags everyone down with it. They'd already packed my things. 1 suitcase, my laptop, and $200 in cash. Bus fare to wherever, Mom called it. No phone, that was on their plan. No car, that was in their name. No bank account access, they'd removed me that morning. Where am I supposed to go? That's your problem now, Dad said, already turning away. You're an adult. Figure it out. My siblings watched from the stairs. Nathan, 22 and perfect, shook his head like I'd brought this on myself. Serena, 20 and ambitious, wouldn't even meet my eyes. The family portrait on the wall behind them showed 5 smiling faces. By morning, they probably have it reshot with just 4. I stood on that sidewalk until dawn, suitcase at my feet, trying to understand how 18 years of being their son had ended with being called dead weight. The last thing I heard before the door locked was Mom telling Dad they should change the locks, just to be safe. I took a Greyhound to New York with $108 left after the ticket. No plan except a vague idea that artists went to New York. I spent the first night in Penn Station, the second in a 24-hour McDonald's, the third at a homeless shelter that terrified me so much I chose the streets instead. But desperation is a powerful teacher. I found work at a loading dock, cash under the table, no questions asked. Slept in a storage unit I rented for $50 a month. Showered at a gym that didn't check membership cards too carefully. Drew constantly on cardboard, napkins, anything I could find. One night, exhausted after a 16-hour shift, I sketched the loading dock crew on a piece of packing paper. My supervisor, Carlos, saw it the next day. "Yo, you drew this?" I nodded, expecting mockery. "This is good, man. Like really good. You ever think about doing comics?" Comics. I'd never considered it. But Carlos lent me his nephew's graphic novels. I devoured them, saw how visual storytelling could bypass my dyslexia, speak in images instead of words. I started creating my own comic during breaks, after shifts, in the storage unit by flashlight. A story about outcasts, about people society threw away who built something beautiful from scraps. Wonder where that inspiration came from. 6 months in, I showed my work to a comic shop owner in Brooklyn. He didn't buy it, but he knew someone who might be interested. That someone knew someone else. 3 rejections later, a small publisher offered me $500 for a short story in their anthology. $500. First money I'd ever earned from art. I cried in that storage unit, holding the check like proof I wasn't dead weight after all. The anthology did well. They wanted more stories. I kept working the docks, kept drawing at night, kept pushing. My second story earned $1,000. The third, $2,000. When I had enough saved, I quit the dock job and drew full-time, living on ramen and determination. My breakthrough came 2 years later. Discarded. A graphic novel about homeless teens with superpowers caught the attention of a major publisher. They offered a 3-book deal. The advance was more money than I'd ever imagined. $100,000. I moved out of the storage unit into a studio apartment, bought a real desk, ate vegetables for the first time in 2 years, and I kept creating, kept pushing, kept proving that art wasn't a fantasy. Discarded hit the New York Times bestseller list. The film rights sold to Netflix. Suddenly, the kid who couldn't pass algebra was flying to Hollywood for meetings. The sequel did even better. By book 3, I wasn't just successful, I was wealthy. I bought the penthouse as a 25th birthday present to myself. 42nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of Central Park. The building had a doorman who called me Mr. Chen and meant it. The walls displayed original art by creators I'd idolized from that storage unit. Forbes noticed when the discarded franchise crossed $50 million in earnings. 30 under 30, Miles Chen turns rejection into empire. The photo shoot felt surreal. Designer clothes on the kid who'd worn the same 3 shirts for a year. That's when my family discovered what had become of their dead weight. The first contact came through Instagram. Nathan, now a corporate lawyer, suddenly interested in his little brother's life. Miles saw the Forbes article. "So proud of you. We should catch up." I didn't respond. Serena tried next, commenting on every post. "That's my baby brother. Always knew you were special. Miss you." I blocked her. Mom sent emails to my business address, each one rewriting history. "We always believed in your artistic gifts. Tough love helped you succeed. Families should celebrate together." I marked them as spam. But yesterday, they escalated. I was returning from a charity event. We'd raised $2 million for youth homeless shelters when I saw it. A beat-up Honda Civic parked across from my building, hazard lights blinking. Inside, 4 familiar faces illuminated by a dome light. My family. They looked smaller than I remembered. Shabbier. Mom's designer clothes replaced with Walmart basics. Dad's commanding presence shrunk into hunched shoulders. Nathan's confident smile turned brittle. Serena's polished beauty hidden behind unwashed hair. I had my driver circle the block while I called building security. "There's a suspicious vehicle across the street. Please monitor." "Of course, Mr. Chen. We'll keep an eye on them." I entered through the garage, took the private elevator to my penthouse, and tried to process what I'd seen. Why were they here? Why now? Why living in their car? The answer came with the morning news. Dad's investment firm had collapsed, fraud investigation, assets frozen, clients suing. They'd lost everything. The house, the cars, the reputation. Nathan's law firm had cut ties. Serena's residency program had concerns about her family connections. From millionaire family to homeless in 6 months. And now they were parked outside my building because suddenly, the dead weight they discarded looked like a life preserver. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized Nathan's voice immediately. Miles? I know you're there. We're downstairs. We need to talk. How did you get this number? Please, just 5 minutes. We're family. I hung up. 20 minutes later, building security called. Mr. Chen, the people in the vehicle are claiming to be your family. They're asking to be let up. Should we? No. If they don't leave, call the police. Understood, sir. I watched from my window as security approached their car. Saw Dad's face turn red with indignation. Mom crying. Nathan gesturing wildly. Serena slumped in the backseat. They didn't leave, but they stopped trying to get in. For 3 days, they lived in that car. I had groceries delivered, worked from home, avoided looking out the windows facing the street. But I knew they were there, waiting, hoping their dead-weight son would save them. On the 4th night, it rained. Heavy, cold October rain that turned streets into rivers. I stood at my window watching their car, fogged windows barely visible through the downpour. They'd thrown me out into a June night with nowhere to go. Now they sat in a car in October, and I was warm and dry 42 floors above them. The poetry wasn't lost on me, neither was the pain. My phone buzzed. Serena had somehow gotten my number. Miles, please. We're cold and hungry. Dad's sick. Just let us explain. I stared at the text for an hour before responding. Giuseppe's Pizza delivers until 2 a.m. Shelter on 42nd Street has beds if you get there before 10. Are you serious? We're your family. I thought about responding. Thought about reminding her how she'd watched them throw me out. How none of them had called in 7 years. How family doesn't mean much when it's conditional. Instead, I donated $50,000 to that shelter on 42nd Street in their names. They'd have beds for a month if they swallowed their pride and took them. The next morning, their car was gone. Security told me they'd left around 3 a.m. after someone called about illegal parking. I didn't ask who called. We both knew. But they came back that evening, this time with a sign. Miles, forgive us. Family helps family. The irony of that phrase, the same one I'd used when begging them not to kick me out, wasn't amusing. It was cruel. They'd redefined family to exclude me when I was a liability. Now they wanted to redraw the lines to include them when they needed help. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter to Nathan's last known address, a friend's couch, apparently. The message was clear: stop the harassment or face legal consequences. They stopped coming to the building but started a social media campaign. Successful artist abandons struggling family. Nathan gave interviews about how I'd turned my back on them in their time of need. Mom posted old family photos, carefully curated to show happy times before they decided I wasn't worth keeping. The narrative was simple. Ungrateful son refuses to help desperate parents. They left out the part where they'd thrown me out. Left out calling me dead weight. Left out 7 years of silence until my success made headlines. My publicist wanted me to respond, tell my side. But I'd learned something in that storage unit, drawing by flashlight. The best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving yourself right. So I didn't engage. Instead, I announced a new initiative. Full scholarships for young artists aged out of foster care or experiencing homelessness. Kids whose families have failed them. Kids told they were dead weight. Kids who needed someone to believe in them when no one else would. The first recipient was an 18-year-old girl from Detroit. kicked out for pursuing art instead of real career. The second, a boy from Houston whose parents said comic books were demonic. 10 kids in the first round, all with stories that echoed mine. At the scholarship ceremony, I spoke briefly. Dead weight is just potential energy society hasn't learned to value yet. These young artists aren't burdens. They're the future. And unlike some people, we won't abandon them when they need us most. The Forbes article about the scholarship program mentioned my family situation in passing. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. People who'd experienced similar rejections shared their stories. #DeadWeightHo success started trending. My family's victim narrative crumbled against an avalanche of truth. Nathan tried one last time. A handwritten letter slipped under my door somehow. Miles, I know you hate us. We deserve it. But hate doesn't have to mean cruelty. We're drowning. You have the means to help. Whatever we were, we're still your blood. Doesn't that mean anything? Nathan. I kept the letter. Not from sentiment, but as a reminder. Blood meant nothing when they spilled mine on the sidewalk 7 years ago. Blood meant nothing when they changed the locks. Blood meant nothing when they told the world I was dead weight. But create a chosen family of artists, outcasts, and survivors. Support kids whose biological families failed them. Build something beautiful from the scraps society discarded. That meant everything. They eventually left New York. Last I heard, Dad was working at a call center in New Jersey. Mom taught piano lessons. Nathan did document review for minimum wage. Serena never finished her residency. Were they humbled? Maybe. Had they learned? Possibly. Did it matter? Not to me. Because here's what my family never understood. When you throw someone away, you don't get to reclaim them when they become valuable. When you call someone dead weight, you don't get to grab on when they learn to fly. When you kick someone out for being useless, you don't get to move in when they build a penthouse. They make their choice at 18. I made mine at 25. Both were final. The scholarship kids write me sometimes. Talk about their art, their struggles, their dreams. One letter stands out, from the girl in Detroit. They said I was wasting my life. Now I'm illustrating children's books. Kids who look like me finally see themselves as heroes. Thank you for believing in dead weight. I framed that letter. It hangs in my office next to the Forbes cover, next to the movie posters, next to all the success my family said I'd never achieve. Because that's the thing about being called dead weight. It only defines you if you let it. And I stopped letting my family define me the night they threw me out. Now, I define myself, and the definition doesn't include them. The penthouse is quiet tonight. Peaceful. I'm working on a new graphic novel about chosen families, about finding your people when your blood fails you. My actual family, the artists, the survivors, the other dead weights who became diamonds, they'll love it. As for the family living in their car, demanding entry to my life after 7 years of absence, they're just strangers who happen to share my DNA. And I don't open my door to strangers, especially ones who already proved they'd throw me out when given the chance. Family helps family, sure. But first, you have to act like family. And dead weight doesn't get lighter with age. It just learns to carry itself.
The Windsor Hotel ballroom glittered with a kind of understated elegance that whispered money rather than shouted it. I stood near the champagne fountain in my carefully chosen black dress. Professional but forgettable, exactly how my father preferred me to appear at these events. Ah, the Nakamura delegation, my father, William Brennan, announced to his circle of associates, his voice carrying that particular tone of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. Let me introduce my family. This is my son, Marcus, the future CEO of Brennan Industries. Marcus straightened his shoulders, preening under the attention. At 28, he'd been the heir apparent since birth, groomed for leadership despite showing more interest in his golf handicap than profit margins. And this is my daughter, Emma, Dad continued, his hand barely gesturing in my direction. She helps with filing. Filing. 7 years of strategic planning, 3 years of managing our Asian Pacific operations remotely, and an MBA from Wharton reduced to filing. I maintained my practiced smile, the one that said I was harmless, decorative, and properly aware of my place. Mr. Tanaka, the head of Nakamura Corporation, studied me with dark, intelligent eyes. His team stood behind him. 5 executives I'd been corresponding with for 3 years, though they'd never seen my face. Only my work. Miss Brennan, Mr. Tanaka said, bowing slightly. A pleasure to finally meet you. The pleasure is mine, Tanaka-san, I replied in perfect Japanese, returning the bow at the precise angle required by his status. My father's eyebrows rose slightly, the first crack in his composed facade. I didn't know you spoke Japanese, Emma. There was so much he didn't know, like the fact that I'd been running our entire Asian Pacific division from my filing room for 3 years, or that the 40% growth in that sector wasn't Marcus's achievement, it was mine. Just a few phrases, I lied smoothly, switching back to English. I like to make our international guests feel welcome. How thoughtful, my father said, already dismissing me as he turned back to Mr. Tanaka. Now, about the Yokohama expansion, Marcus has some excellent ideas. Marcus launched into his prepared speech, the one I'd written for him last week. I watched Mr. Tanaka's expression remain politely neutral as my brother butchered the pronunciation of every Japanese term and confused Yokohama with Osaka twice. I excused myself, ostensibly to check on the catering but really to avoid watching my work filtered through my brother's mediocrity. In the hallway, I pulled out my phone to find several urgent emails from Takeshi Yamamoto, Nakamura Corporation's CFO. EB, his message read, using the initials I'd hidden behind for 3 years. The presentation is concerning. Is this really the strategy we discussed? Your brother seems confused about basic logistics. I typed back quickly, technical difficulties with communication. We'll send clarification tomorrow. Emma? A voice behind me made me turn. James Chen, our VP of Operations and one of the few people who knew the truth about my role, stood there looking amused. Hiding from the festivities. Just checking on a few things, I said, showing him my phone. His expression grew serious. How long are you going to keep this up? Letting Marcus take credit while you run half the company from the shadows. As long as necessary. Your father just introduced you as a filing clerk. To Tanaka. To the man whose business you've personally grown by 40%. I know. It's insulting. It's strategic, I corrected. Dad's not ready for a daughter in leadership, but the company needs the work done. So I do it quietly. James shook his head. What happens when Tanaka finds out? The Japanese value honesty and relationship building. This deception won't matter if the numbers stay good. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. 3 years of shadow leadership had taken its toll. Watching Marcus accept accolades for my strategies, hearing my father dismiss my contributions, pretending to be less than I was, it was exhausting. We returned to the ballroom where the formal presentation was beginning. Marcus stood at the podium, clicking through slides I'd designed, reading words I'd written, taking credit for relationships I'd built. Our success in the Asian market, he declared confidently, is due to my innovative approach to cross-cultural business. I saw several members of the Nakamura team exchange glances. Takeshi Yamamoto was frowning, studying Marcus with the intensity of someone solving a puzzle. The presentation continued for 20 minutes. Marcus stumbled over the financial projections, confused the supplier contracts, and completely mangled the timeline for the Singapore expansion. Each mistake was like a small cut, death by 1,000 errors. Finally, mercifully, it ended. The applause was polite but lukewarm. My father's jaw was tight. He knew something had gone wrong but couldn't pinpoint what. Thank you, Marcus, Mr. Tanaka said, rising from his seat. His voice was perfectly courteous, giving nothing away. Most illuminating. However, before we proceed with any decisions about our continued partnership, I have some concerns. The room tense. The Nakamura account represented $50 million annually, nearly 30% of our international revenue. Losing it would be catastrophic. Of course, my father said smoothly, Marcus would be happy to address any concerns. Actually, Mr. Tanaka said, his gaze finding me in the crowd, I would like to hear from Miss Brennan. Every head of the room swiveled toward me. I felt my father's shock like a physical force. Emma? Dad's voice carried a warning. I'm sure Mr. Tanaka meant. I meant your daughter, Mr. Tanaka interrupted, something steel in his tone. The one who helps with filing. I walked to the front of the room, feeling like I was moving through water. 3 years of hiding, of diminishing myself, of playing the supporting role, all about to shatter. What would you like to know, Tanaka-san? I asked in Japanese. I would like to know, he replied in the same language, why the person who has been managing our account for 3 years is standing here pretending to be a file clerk. The room erupted. My father's face went from confused to shocked to furious in the span of seconds. Marcus looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. I don't understand, my father said in English. Emma doesn't manage accounts. She's in administrative support. Mr. Tanaka pulled out a folder, laying it on the podium. These are email communications spanning 3 years, strategic proposals, market analysis, solutions to complex logistical problems. All signed EB, which, unless I'm mistaken, stands for Emma Brennan. That's impossible, Marcus sputtered. I manage the Nakamura account. Those are my strategies. Really? Takeshi Yamamoto stood up. Then perhaps you can explain the reasoning behind the Osaka distribution restructuring. It was quite brilliant. Marcus's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Or, another member of the Nakamura team added, the solution to the regulatory issue in Singapore that saved us $8 million. Silence. I've been wondering, Mr. Tanaka continued, turning back to me, why someone of your caliber would hide behind initials. Now I understand. Your father doesn't believe women can lead. That's not, my father started. Isn't it? Mr. Tanaka's voice was ice. You introduced your son as the future CEO and your daughter as someone who helps with filing. Yet she's the one who's been managing our account, growing our business, solving problems your son doesn't even understand. There must be some misunderstanding, Dad insisted. Emma isn't qualified. I have an MBA from Wharton, I said quietly. Graduated summa cum laude. I speak fluent Japanese, Mandarin, and Korean. I've been managing your Asian Pacific operations for 3 years, generating 40% growth. That was Marcus's achievement. No, I pulled out my phone, connecting it to the presentation system. It wasn't. The screen filled with documents, emails, strategy papers, financial projections, all with tracked changes showing my authorship. 3 years of work meticulously documented. Every major win in the Asian Pacific market for the last 3 years, I said, scrolling through the evidence. My strategies, my relationships, my work. Filtered through Marcus because you couldn't conceive of your daughter being capable of more than filing. The room was tomb silent. Board members I'd known since childhood stared at me like they'd never seen me before. Marcus had sunk into a chair, his face pale. But it was my father's expression that hit hardest, a mixture of disbelief, betrayal, and dawning recognition. You've been deceiving me, he said. I've been saving your company, I corrected. The Nakamura account was failing when I took it over. Henderson Industries was about to poach them. The entire Asian Pacific division was hemorrhaging money. But you'd made it clear that women in our family were meant to support, not lead. So I supported. Invisibly. By lying. By doing what was necessary. Just like you taught me. Results matter, right? Well, here are the results. I clicked to a summary slide. 40% growth. 50 million in retained business. 30 million in new accounts. All while being paid as an administrative assistant. Mr. Tanaka cleared his throat. Brennan-san, I believe I was clear in my message last week. Nakamura Corporation will be moving our account. My father's face went gray. Mr. Tanaka, please. We can discuss. Unless, Mr. Tanaka continued as if Dad hadn't spoken, Emma Brennan is named as our account manager. Not unofficially. Not behind the scenes. Publicly with the title and compensation her work deserves. That's blackmail, Marcus burst out. That's business, Mr. Tanaka replied calmly. We invest in competence, not chromosomes. Your sister has proven her worth. You have proven only that you can read her words badly. The board would never approve. My father started. The board would never approve losing $50 million in revenue. Harrison Walsh, our chairman, interrupted from his table. William, I think we need to discuss this. Immediately. The next hour was chaos. Board members huddled in corners. My father and Marcus retreated to a side room with several executives. Guests murmured and gossiped. The gala transformed into the most dramatic business event of the year. I stood on the balcony, letting the cool air calm my racing heart. 3 years of secrets spilled in minutes. The careful balance I maintained, being useful enough to protect the company but invisible enough to protect my father's ego, shattered beyond repair. That was quite a revelation. I turned to find Mr. Tanaka beside me, his expression thoughtful. I apologize for the deception, Tanaka-san. It was never meant to. He held up a hand. I've known for 6 months. I stared at him. What? Takeshi recognized your writing style. We investigated. E.B. Emma Brennan. Not a difficult puzzle. He smiled slightly. We were curious how long you would maintain the charade. Why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to see what your father would do when faced with the truth. Would he embrace your talents or cling to his prejudices? He sighed. I have daughters, Emma-san. Brilliant women who face similar battles. I had hoped your father would prove me wrong about American corporate culture. And now we wait. Either Brennan Industries evolves or it loses our business. Simple. Through the glass doors, I could see my father emerging from his meeting. His face was set in hard lines, aging him a decade. He scanned the room until he found me, then walked onto the balcony. Mr. Tanaka, could you give us a moment? Dad's voice was controlled, professional. Of course. Emma-san, I look forward to our official partnership. Mr. Tanaka bowed and withdrew. Silence stretched between my father and me. 28 years of relationship, and we'd never been here before. Past pretense, beyond roles, just truth hanging in the air like smoke. Vice President of Asian Pacific Operations, he said finally. That's what the board approved. Effective immediately. And Marcus will be reassigned to domestic sales, where his enthusiasm might be better suited. I nodded, waiting. You made a fool of me, he said, his voice tight, in front of clients, competitors, everyone. You made a file clerk of me, I replied, despite my qualifications, my proven results, my dedication to this company, because I'm a woman. I was protecting you. The business world is brutal. I know. I've been succeeding in it for 3 years while you weren't looking. His jaw worked. Your mother warned me this would happen. Said I was too stuck in old ways. Too proud to see what was in front of me. Mom had died when I was 15, but her voice still echoed in moments like this. She'd run her own design firm, small but successful, constantly battling my father's condescension disguised as concern. She was right, I said simply. Yes, the admission seemed to cost him. She usually was. Another silence. Inside the gala was resuming some semblance of normalcy, though clusters of people still whispered and pointed. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. How to see you as this, whatever you've become. I've become what you raised me to be, just not in the package you expected. Vice President, he said, testing the words. My daughter, the Vice President. Your daughter, the one who saved the Nakamura account. Twice. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. Your mother would be insufferably proud. Good. He turned to go, then paused. The Singapore proposal on Marcus's desk. That's yours too. All of it. It's brilliant. I know. This time his smile was real, if pained. We'll need to discuss salary, benefits, real ones, not the administrative pittance you've been accepting. James Chen has a proposal prepared. He's been advocating for this for 2 years. Of course he has. Dad shook his head. How many people knew? Everyone who bothered to look past their assumptions. He absorbed that, then straightened his shoulders, the William Brennan who'd built an empire from nothing, preparing for battle. There will be pushback. Board members who think like I did. Clients who aren't as progressive as Tanaka. Employees who've never seen a woman in real leadership here. I've been leading from the shadows for 3 years. At least now I can do it in the light. It won't be easy. It never has been. He studied me, really looked at me for perhaps the first time. Not as his daughter, not as a subordinate, but as what I'd made myself into despite his limitations. Vice President Emma Brennan, he said formally, extending his hand. Welcome to the leadership team. I shook his hand, firm and professional. Thank you. Now, should we go salvage what's left of the gala? I believe you have a new organizational structure to announce. We walked back into the ballroom together. The conversation stopped, all eyes tracking our movement. At the podium, My father cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, I have an additional announcement. It seems Brennan Industries has been benefiting from hidden talent. Effective immediately, Emma Brennan will serve as Vice President of Asian Pacific Operations. The applause was scattered at first, then grew as Mr. Tanaka and his team stood, clapping deliberately. James Chen whistled. Even some board members, seeing which way the wind was blowing, joined in. Marcus sat alone at his table, staring at his untouched champagne. I'd deal with my brother later. 3 years of taking credit had left him unprepared for actual responsibility. We both have to figure out who he really was without my work to hide behind. Additionally, my father continued, his voice gaining strength, I owe you all an apology, and my daughter an even bigger one. It seems my old-fashioned views have been costing this company its best asset. That changes now. He found me in the crowd. Emma, would you say a few words about your vision for the Asia-Pacific division? I walked to the podium, no longer invisible, no longer diminished. The microphone felt like vindication in my hand. Thank you. I began in English, then switched to Japanese. Tanaka-san, arigato gozaimashita. Thank you for everything, not just the ultimatum, but for seeing me when my own family couldn't. I outlined my plans, expansion into Southeast Asia, partnerships with emerging tech companies, supply chain innovations that would cut costs by 20%. No more filtering through Marcus, no more hiding behind initials. Just competence, finally acknowledged. When I finished, the applause was genuine. Mr. Tanaka approached the podium. Nakamura Corporation is pleased to not only maintain but expand our partnership with Brennan Industries, he announced. We look forward to working with Vice President Brennan directly. Officially. $50 million retained, plus the promise of more. All because one man believed women could lead and forced another to confront his prejudice. The rest of the evening blurred. Congratulations, questions, barely veiled curiosity about how I pulled off such a deception. I handled it all with the same skills I'd used to manage million-dollar accounts, grace, precision, and just enough steel to remind them I'd earned this. Near midnight, as the gala wound down, I found myself alone with James Chen. So, he said, grinning, how does it feel to finally be yourself? Terrifying, I admitted. Exhilarating. Exhausting. Worth it? I thought about 3 years of hiding, of diminishing myself, of accepting less than I deserved. Then I thought about the future, my name on my work, my ideas and my voice, my achievements finally indisputably mine. Ask me in a year, I said. But we both knew the answer. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the battle was against your own family's limitations. Even if victory came not through confrontation, but through quiet competence that eventually became too big to ignore. I was done filing. It was time to lead. And despite everything, or maybe because of it, my father was finally ready to let me. The mashed potatoes were still steaming when my sister Jenna leaped from her chair, nearly knocking over Grandma's antique gravy boat. Oui, Delon, oui, bon, she screamed, waving a lottery ticket above her head like a battle flag. The entire table froze, forks suspended midway to mouths. Dad's beer paused at his lips. Even my nephew stopped flinging peas long enough to stare. One what? Mom gasped, her hand flying to her chest. The lottery, the big one. $58 million. Jenna was bouncing now, tears streaming down her face. I checked the numbers 5 times. We're rich? We're all rich. The explosion of sound that followed probably registered on the Richter scale. Chairs scraped back, voices rose to deafening levels, and suddenly everyone was hugging, crying, and shouting over each other. Let me see. Dad snatched the ticket, comparing it to the numbers on his phone. His face went from skeptical to stunned. Holy shit. Pardon my French, but holy shit. How? Mom was sobbing now. When? Where did you buy it? That's the best part, Jenna beamed, her arms suddenly around my shoulders. It's the family ticket, the one we all chip in for every week, from our regular store on Maple Street. Can you believe it? All those years of everyone putting in $5 finally paid off. My blood went cold. The family ticket, the one I'd been buying faithfully every Friday for 3 years with everyone's contributions. The one I purchased just yesterday at Chen's corner store, same as always. The one currently sitting in my wallet, in my purse, under this very table. But I hadn't checked the numbers yet. I've been planning to do it after dinner, same as always. This calls for champagne. Uncle Pete boomed. Break out the good stuff. Screw champagne, this calls for documentation. My brother Mark, ever the practical lawyer, was already recording on his phone. Say it again, Jenna. Tell the camera about our winning ticket. As my family erupted into celebration around me, I quietly reached for my purse. My fingers found my wallet, felt for the familiar slip of paper. Still there. I pulled out my phone and quickly checked the winning numbers. My heart stopped. The numbers on my ticket, the real family ticket, matched perfectly. All 6 numbers plus the Powerball. But how did Jenna have? I'm calling the lottery office, Dad announced. They'll want to verify this immediately. We need to get this ball rolling. Already ahead of you, Jenna chirped. I called them an hour ago. They're sending someone over for an initial verification and to take photos for the press release. Should be here any minute. An hour ago. But the drawing was only 2 hours ago, which meant she checked the numbers, called the lottery office, and somehow created a fake ticket, all before our weekly family dinner. Jenna, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Can I see the ticket? She clutched it to her chest. Are you crazy? This is worth $58 million. I'm not letting it out of my sight until the lottery official gets here. I just want to look. Oh, Emma, don't be such a downer, my mother scolded. Your sister just made us all millionaires. The least you can do is be happy for her, for all of us. Yeah, Em, my brother sneered. Not everything's about you. Let Jenna have her moment. Her moment, with my ticket, or rather, a fake version of it. The doorbell rang and the room erupted again. They're here. The lottery people are here. Dad practically ran to the door, returning with a man in a crisp suit carrying an official lottery briefcase. Folks, I'm Timothy Walton from the State Lottery Commission. I understand we have a big winner here. Right here. Jenna thrust the ticket at him. $58 million. Mr. Walton smiled professionally, pulling out a tablet and a scanning device. Excellent. Let's verify this happy news, shall we? This will just take a moment. He scanned the barcode. The device beeped. His smile faltered. I'm sorry, could you hold the ticket steady? Let me scan it again. Another beep. This time, his frown was unmistakable. Is there a problem? Dad asked, the celebration draining from his voice. Mr. Walton examined the ticket closely, then pulled out a jeweler's loupe. After a long moment, he looked up, his expression grave. I'm afraid this ticket is counterfeit. The silence was deafening. That's impossible, Jenna stammered. I bought it myself. From Chen's on Maple Street. Check your records. Ma'am, this is a very sophisticated fake, but it's definitely not authentic. The barcode doesn't match any in our system. The serial numbers are wrong, and the paper itself isn't from our approved printer. He pulled out his tablet, typing quickly. However, you mentioned Chen's corner store on Maple Street? Yes, multiple family members tourist. Interesting. His fingers flew over the screen. Our records do show a winning ticket was purchased at that location yesterday at 4:47 p.m. The purchaser used a credit card. He looked up, scanning the room. Is there an Emma Morrison here? Every head turned to me. That's me, I said quietly. According to our records, you purchased the winning ticket. Ticket number 47,839,205. Would you happen to have it? With shaking hands, I pulled the real ticket from my wallet. The room was so quiet I could hear the paper rustling as I handed it over. Mr. Walton scanned it. The device gave a melodious chime, completely different from the error beep of Jenna's fake. His tablet lit up green. Congratulations, Ms. Morrison. You are indeed the winner of last night's $58 million jackpot. But that's the family ticket, Jenna shrieked. We all pay for it. She buys it for all of us. Is that true? Mr. Walton asked me. I looked around the room at my family, the same family that had forgotten to contribute their $5 for the past 6 months, always promising to pay me back later. The same family that mocked my obsession with playing the same numbers every week. The same family that called me stupid for wasting money on mathematical impossibilities. No, I said clearly. I've been buying this ticket myself, with my own money, every week for 3 years. You lying bitch. Jenna lunged for the ticket, but Mr. Walton stepped smoothly between us. Ma'am, I need to warn you that attempting to steal a winning lottery ticket is a felony, as is creating counterfeit lottery tickets, which carries a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. She's lying, Mom cried. That's our family ticket. We've been buying it together for years. Tell him, everyone. But when Mr. Walton pulled up the purchase history, the evidence was damning. Every single ticket, purchased with my credit card. My name on every transaction. 3 years of receipts, all tied to my personal account. Furthermore, Mr. Walton continued, now looking directly at Jenna. I'll need to know where you obtained this counterfeit ticket. This is one of the most sophisticated fakes I've seen. This wasn't made on a home printer. Jenna's face had gone from red to white to green. I have thought it was real. Someone must have switched it. Who? I asked, finding my voice. Who switched it, Jenna? Because you just told everyone you bought it yourself. You called the lottery office an hour ago. You knew exactly which numbers won. So either you stole my ticket and replaced it with a fake, or you knew the winning numbers and had a fake made. Which is it? Don't you dare accuse your sister, Dad started, but Mark the lawyer held up his hand. Actually, Dad, Emma's right. Jenna's story doesn't add up. And if she did have a counterfeit ticket made, he turned to Mr. Walton. That's federal fraud, isn't it? Indeed it is, Mr. Walton confirmed. In fact, I'm required to report this to law enforcement. This level of sophistication suggests professional involvement. I know a guy, Jenna whispered, tears streaming down her face. From work. He makes novelty items. I thought if I could just pretend for the photo, then Emma would share anyway because we're family. You thought you'd steal my $58 million with a fake ticket? I asked, incredulous. It's not your money, Dad roared. It's the having in my LA ticket. Then where's your contributions, Dad? I shot back. Where's the $5 a week you promised? Where's anyone's money except mine? Mr. Walton pulled out his phone. I'm calling this in. Ma'am, he looked at Jenna. I suggest you contact a lawyer. Creating counterfeit lottery tickets with intent to defraud is a serious federal crime. As he stepped aside to make his call, my family turned on me like a pack of wolves. You can't do this to us. We're your family. We raised you. You owe us. After everything we've done for you. The accusations flew fast and thick, but one comment from Uncle Pete stopped me cold. We should have known you'd pull something like this. Just like when you hid your college scholarship from everyone. I didn't hide it, I said slowly. You all told me not to take it. Said college was a waste for a girl. That I should stay home and help with the family business. And you should have. Mom cried. But no, you had to be selfish. Just like now. Keeping all that money for yourself when your family needs it. Needs it? I laughed, but it was bitter. Pete, you make 6 figures. Mark, you're a partner at your firm. Jenna, you just bought a new Mercedes. What exactly do you need my lottery winnings for? That's not the point, Jenna sniffled. Family shares. Family takes care of each other. Like you took care of me when I was working 3 jobs to pay for college? Like you shared when I needed help with my student loans? Like you took care of me when I was sleeping in my car because I couldn't afford rent and you wouldn't let me stay here? Silence. Mr. Walton returned, 2 police officers behind him. Ms. Morrison, we'll need you to come to the lottery office tomorrow to complete the claim process. Bring identification and the ticket. We'll arrange for security. He handed me his card. Congratulations again on your win. Then he turned to Jenna. Officers, this is the person who presented the counterfeit ticket. As the police began questioning Jenna, as my family realized their golden goose was flying away, my phone buzzed. A text from my best friend. Did you check your lottery numbers yet? The jackpot is huge. I typed back, yes, I won. Gee, drinks to celebrate. I looked around at my family one more time. At their angry, entitled faces. At Jenna being read her rights. At the death of any relationship we might have salvaged. Absolutely, I'm buying. For the rest of our lives. I walked out of my childhood home, leaving behind the shouting, the accusations, the police questioning. $58 million in my pocket and not a single regret in my heart. They say money doesn't buy happiness, but it does buy freedom. Freedom from toxic people who only see your value in what you can give them. Freedom from family members who would literally commit federal crimes to steal from you. As I sat in my car, I pulled up my banking app. 3 years of $5 tickets, $780 of my own money. The family had contributed maybe $50 total in 3 years, always with excuses, always with promises to pay later. I did some quick math. If I'd shared the winnings equally with the 12 family members at dinner, they each would have gotten over $4 million for a $50 investment, or in most cases, no investment at all. Instead, they'd get nothing. Well, Jen would get something. 3 to 5 years in federal prison, according to Mark's panicked texts now flooding my phone. I blocked every single number and drove away. $58 million can buy a lot of things, but it can't buy a loving family. Fortunately, I'd already learned to live without one. The lottery office called the next morning. After taxes, I'd take home about $30 million. More than enough to disappear, start over, and build a life surrounded by people who loved me for more than my bank account. But first, I had one stop to make. Chen's corner store, where Mr. Chen had sold me hundreds of lottery tickets over the years, always with a smile and a good luck, Emma. Mr. Chen, I said, walking in with the biggest smile of my life. Remember how you always said one day I'd win big? He laughed. Every week, same numbers. I told my wife, that Emma, she's persistent. Well, persistence paid off. $58 million. His jaw dropped. You're joking. Nope. And I wanted to thank you. You've always been kind to me, so I'm giving you $1 million. He stared at me, then burst into tears. Real tears, not the crocodile tears my family had cried. Tears of genuine gratitude from someone who'd shown me more kindness than my blood relatives ever had. That's what money should do, reward kindness, appreciate loyalty, recognize genuine human connection. My family had done none of those things. They'd shown me exactly who they were, people willing to lie, steal, and commit fraud for money they hadn't earned. The news broke the next day. Local woman wins $58 million lottery, sister arrested for fraud. The media had a field day. My family tried to spin it, claim I'd stolen their communal ticket, but the evidence was overwhelming. Every purchase in my name, every dollar from my account. The best part, Jenna's guy from work turned out to be part of a larger counterfeiting ring. Her attempt to steal from me had exposed an entire criminal operation. She didn't just get 3 years, she got 7. I changed my name, moved across the country, started a foundation for young women escaping toxic families. Turns out, there were a lot of us, people whose blood relatives saw them as ATMs rather than human beings. The lottery ticket sits framed in my new office, right next to a photo Mr. Chen's wife took of us the day I gave him the check. 2 people who understood that family isn't about blood or manipulation or fake tickets. It's about choosing to be kind, choosing to be honest, choosing to celebrate each other's success instead of trying to steal it. $58 million taught me that. But really, I should have learned it earlier. Maybe when they forgot my birthday but remembered to ask for loans. Maybe when they laughed at my dreams but lined up for the rewards. Maybe when they bought a fake lottery ticket to steal my real one. Or maybe this was exactly when I needed to learn it, when the stakes were high enough that their true colors couldn't hide behind family obligation. Either way, I'm grateful. Grateful for Mr. Walton's scanner that exposed the fraud. Grateful for Mr. Chen's genuine friendship. Grateful for the 58 million reasons I never have to sit at that dinner table again. They say you can't win if you don't play. Turns out, you also can't win if your family tries to steal your ticket. But I won anyway, and that's the only number that matters.